no look like this has ever been put on screen before. They've been pushing towards this at DreamWorks for a while. Robots and machines in general, I think, feel vulnerable. Kindness can be a survival skill. I only want to work with people that are willing to disagree with me. When I finally started directing, there was a moment where I thought, well, I don't think I can do this.
I saw the movie, I love it so much that I cried a lot.
Oh, I'm
Never
glad you liked
expected.
it.
Yeah, I love
I'm glad
it.
you saw it. It's a different kind of story. We knew that it was going to be a more unusual story. It was going to unspool more slowly. It was a very emotional story, and everybody stayed true to the book. I wanted to make sure that even though you make changes, you make adaptations, it's a translation from the page to the screen, but we wanted, like Peter Brown, the author, I was always thinking about him and hoping that he would like the finished product. I like stories like this, stories that are, I guess, in some ways they're smaller, but really they're big. And it's the journey of the main character, Roz, that I think was the most exciting to me. We never get to do stories about a mother, and she becomes a mother by accident. It kind of fell in her lap, this job,
Yeah.
and the way that she had to deal with it. That's the kind of story that really compels me, because her whole existence was going the wrong direction. She wakes up on an island that she's not even supposed to be on. She's lost and she doesn't know it. So she has to put so many things together and overcome so many things. That kind of a character, I think, is really compelling. Her connection, of course, to Bright Bill, the Gosling that she accidentally adopts, there's a huge emotional component to that. But also there's other characters around her, namely for me, Fink. He's a fox, and his role in the story is he doesn't befriend Roz, he attempts to manipulate her.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think.
At the beginning.
Yeah, that's what foxes do. So he tries to manipulate her, but very quickly becomes, like, I think he doesn't even realize it at first, he's becoming her friend. I think he's very dimensional. He has a lot of damage that he hides.
Yeah.
And as the story unspools, you start to understand how much damage he has and how badly he needs someone to help him.
Which animal character is your personal favorite?
Fink will always be my favorite because I really like foxes and I liked his personality. So I love him, and I also like his journey from being manipulative to being a very vulnerable character who's just a good friend to Roz. He actually said to me, like, the character of Fink is closer to his real self, his real character, than things he's done in the past. There was a line in the film that is no longer in there because we made some changes, but the line that he read, he was looking at kind of like a tablet, and it was accessories that you can buy for Roz. He was at that point thinking, ooh, I'd like to get some of these because I could make my robot even more powerful. And he saw something, and the line was, ooh, can we get that? But the way he read it was, oh, can we get that? And it suddenly sounded like a little kid.
Aww.
And the minute when he said that, I looked at my editor and I was like, and she's like, I already wrote it down. Like we circled that take. And that to me was a real key to his character. He's got this sort of innocence to him. The idea that you have to step outside of your programming is obviously like something that's like at the core of this movie.
Sometimes to survive, we must become more than we were programmed to be.
So just finding just the right wording. I put on some music and I listen to some music and I get in the right mood and it'll come to you eventually.
So this is a secret sauce of your...
Music for me is a huge component in my creative process. And one of the reasons I'm anxious for people to see this in the theater is to hear that score, like in giant speakers in that space, because it's just amazing.
I burst into tears, the one line, I'm a wild robot.
And I am a wild robot.
Oh, I was like, cry a lot.
Oh, I'm glad you like that. We were trying from the very beginning to find it, because that's the title of the book.
Yeah.
And we worked very hard to find just the right moment to put those words. You never see this as like an animation. It's real. It's real life. It's really happening. And you want the character, you think like, what would I do? like what would this character do? You want the cause and effect to be believable. In this case, we have a journey of a character who is accidentally going to become a mother. And that was brand new. And everybody helps in that, you know, like my editor and my head of story and all of us, we have our own very personal journeys that we've all been on. And everybody brings that to the table. I only want to work with people that are willing to disagree with me. If people say yes to everything I do, then it's not going to be a good movie. We need everybody together to shape these things. By listening to my crew and all of us like debating things, you eventually get to the right answer.
Animals in the film are very realistic and full of personality. So what was the process of creating these animals?
You know, this was an exciting movie for the animators because you don't always get the chance to do animals that are animals. And the movement of the animals and the bird's wings and the way that Fink would walk around, like he walks on all fours like a fox. And so they got to study animal motion and perfect that. And the interesting thing is there's a purity to the creatures and there's a purity to the animation that I've never really experienced before. And I think it's because of the stuff that's not there. Like they don't have cell phones and they don't have shoes and they don't have cars and there's no doors to open. And so in the absence of all that, there's a beauty and a purity to the characters. I mean, we love watching animals.
Yeah.
Watching an animal is, yeah. And so going to this film is like watching animals move around.
Yeah.
So seeing how the animators responded to this was really cool. Watching the animators and the riggers, watching them rig the wings, because when a bird folds its wings, it's kind of like a magic trick. Like it goes from a wing to just like almost gone. And they perfected that, and the wings had color coding, and so they had to break the wings down into like primaries and secondaries and filling feathers and stuff and shaping feathers. And seeing how they engineered that was really interesting, and a lot of work went into that.
And the artistic style of the film is innovative and distinct. How was the style determined?
I'd say that when it comes to the look, I think all roads lead back to Bambi in a way. Tyrus Wong's washes, they're washes, and there's no substitute for a painting. A human hand can do things that nothing else can. Also, Miyazaki's forests in My Neighbor Totoro, those always stayed with me because they feel so incredibly real and rich and deep. And so artistically, we knew visually, we needed to push this thing into a new place. I wanted people to see this the same way that I saw it when I read the book. And so it's a very sophisticated look. It's very impressionistic. And it's very painterly because it is painted. No look like this has ever been put on screen before. It's a dimensional painting. The characters are painted.
Dimensional painting?
It's dimensional painting. So they can paint in space now. It's a technology that they created for this film. I actually went to a demonstration where an artist was sitting at a station with a tablet, and they were painting, and up on screen I saw brushstrokes appear, but it wasn't two-dimensional. They could paint, and then they could move it, and they could paint around corners, and they could paint in shapes. And while you watch the film, the trees, the ground, the flowers, those are all paint. There's no structure underneath them. And the way you can tell is there are holes in some things. Like, so if you look at some of the grass or I always talk about a flower, there are flowers, there's like a stem, but it stops, and there's like a little blob above it. It's just a blob of paint. It's a painting, and you don't have to complete everything in a painting. So it's the way that things are just like, sort of they come and go, if you will. They engineered it, like there's a lot of math behind all this. And they've been pushing towards this at DreamWorks for a while. We love CG, it's great, but you don't want to be locked to something. You want to have some more freedom. So I think everybody in animation in general, everybody has been trying to get away from that gravitational pull that CG has locked us to. And everybody's been pushing against it. And I feel like we finally escaped that gravitational pull and finally got into orbit on this film. This look is specific to this film. So other films will have other looks, but for The Wild Robot, this is a very specific look that we worked very hard to create.
What is the insight of creating this story, and what message you'd like to deliver to the audience through this film? We
were really inspired actually by something Peter Brown told us when he was writing the book. He said that the thing that was on his mind was that kindness can be a survival skill. Roz is a very kind character, and she's very innocent. I think that she feels vulnerable because of that. She doesn't have any like hidden agendas. She is what she is, and I think that also robots and machines in general, I think, feel vulnerable. They have these little robots that deliver things. This happened right before I left on this trip. There's this little robot that comes around the corner and it's running as fast as it can. And they even have these things on it that look like eyes because it has little headlights.
Make them cute.
Yeah, and it's like, it's hurrying and it's got a little flag so it won't get lost. And I'm like, oh, are you gonna be okay? And I just like, my heart just breaks every time I see one of those. And if I ever saw one falling over, I would stop my car and I would help it. There's something about a machine like that, a robot, that feels kind of innocent.
Vulnerable, like you said.
Yeah, vulnerable.
But at the same time, they're a lot stronger than human beings.
Yeah, yeah, motors are strong.
That's the irony.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because Roz is a piece of technology, right? So she's a robot. I've never done a robot movie before, and I think the exploration of her personality, but where she fits in, you know, I think that's the thing that we all are going to have to struggle with and figure out is like how technology fits into our own personal lives.
Yeah.
How much we want to rely on it, how much we invite it in. It helps us. There's no doubt about it. But finding the balance, and I think that's what Roz is doing. Everything goes back to story. That's the human beings, as human beings, we're engineered to like relate to stories in a very personal way. Somebody said once that a story is the essence of experience. So if you tell a really good story about something that happened to you, I get to go through what you went through and I learn from it. So I think it's how we learn, and I think how we understand each other. When I first started out, I started in the story department at Walt Disney Studios, and I didn't even know really what a story department was. And we did storyboards, and we figured out the story so that when the animators come in, they know what to do. When I finally started directing, there was a moment where I thought, well, I don't think I can do this, because now I have to talk to the layout department, and I have to talk to animators, and I have to talk to actors, and I don't know how to do any of these. I'm not an actor, and I can't draw a layout, and I can't do a painting. So I don't think I can do this job. And then I realized I can if I stay out of those things and I stay where I belong. I belong in story. So when I talk to an actor about a scene or an animator, I talk about what the story needs. I stay in my lane and let them do their thing. I let them find have their creative space, and I empower them to do their best work. And I do not get in their way.
So story is like a northern star to navigate the way.
Absolutely. I've seen a few glimpses of it here on IMAX, and I have yet to see it.
So what was your feeling when I
Oh, it
saw
was incredible. It was incredible. I think the bigger it gets, the more details you see. It's an amazing thing.